Not a fan of facings? You're not alone. I did a complete sew along for the Rossi and Fredy Wrap Dress. And I did the Fredy version, which means it has sleeves. I've had a few questions come up about the facing on this dress pattern. So since I was already making the Rossi version, I decided I might as well do a few experiments. This pattern has a full facing from neckline, shoulders, all the way down to the waist, all the way over to the side. So some of the questions that I've had are, could I use bias binding instead of all of that? Could I use a different color? Could I maybe just do a neck facing instead of it going all the way down to my waist? So let's test some of those options. The Rossi version of this pattern is sleeveless. So I was already planning on doing a test top anyway, just to make sure that there was no gaping at the armholes. To keep things simple, I didn't want to make a full test version of this dress. So what I decided to do is to just use the facing pattern as my top of the dress for the practice. Because once you've put in those princess seams on your main pieces, it makes the top the same size as the facing. So let's start by creating a top using the facing pieces. I'm doing the boat neck for the front, and for the back, I'm doing the lower squared neck, but instead of cutting it as a square, I kind of rounded it off a little bit, hoping that that will make it easier to do a bias binding. I'm going to remove the seam allowance from the middle of each piece so that I can cut these pieces out on the fold. I created a binding using my exact fabric. It's 1 3/4 inches wide, and I just have it folded in half. I'm going to be doing a French binding technique. So if you're interested in an actual tutorial on that, the Allspice apron video that I have linked here is a great one to watch on how to do that. My binding is in, and I top stitched it, and I used just a little bit longer stitch length for the top stitch. You can see I understitched it and then I stitched it in. Was glad that I had rounded off that back neckline instead of it being a square. It did make it easier to stitch the binding in. And here's what it looks like wearing it. I think it looks just fine if that is your preferred method of putting in a finished neckline. Here's the back with it rounded, which I think turned out really nice. If you were curious if a binding would work, I hope this helps you make the decision of whether you would like to try it or not. Let's try a smaller facing and see how that works. I created a 2-inch facing for the front and a 2-inch facing for the back. For this trial, I'm actually going to be using my original fabric, and this is the original facing that I created, and then I scrapped it and redid one, cutting it on the fold. I thought, well, I might as well reuse this one because the top is already done. I sewed my shoulder seams together, and then I have hemmed it all the way around. I'm going to attach it just like I would if it was a full one, pinned in and ready to stitch. This is what the facing looks like, which is a 2-inch original facing. I stitched it in, I clipped it around the curves, I finished it, then I understitched it, and then I went back and top stitched it. This is what it looks like, and I'll try it on. I think the smaller facing works just fine. It will keep you from having to worry about all of that on the side, if that's something that you're worried about. I did do a stitch in the ditch right here at the shoulder seam, which just means I stitched right at the shoulder seam just to keep that facing from flipping out. However, I did the first filming I did of myself, I had one little corner sticking up. So you might want to maybe make this a little bit longer, or do maybe just one small little hand stitch or something just to keep that facing down in the back, especially at those corners, you know, those can turn. But it would save you some fabric, and it might save you some frustration around the armholes and that kind of thing if you're putting in sleeves. You may have noticed a difference when I tried it on. This top was a size 8, and this one was a size 10. So that's kind of the little bit of difference there. I discovered that I was right on the line of the measurements, and I should have gone to a 10. So just in case you noticed a difference in the fit, that's the difference. The biggest difference was right here under the arm. The armhole is just a little bit longer on the 10. That's the part that just kind of would have made it a little bit more comfortable. All right, I hope this video has helped answer your facing questions. Yes, you could do a different color. Just make sure you understitch it to keep it from rolling. Press it really nice so that other color does not show any. Top stitch that down just to make sure. You could use a binding if you wanted to, and you can do just a neck facing instead of a full facing. All of those I would suggest for if you were doing the sleeve version. Don't know necessarily that I would do that with the sleeveless version. I'm about ready to make the Rossi myself, and I'll let you know.